Yes. Yes? It is Monday, the 15th day of May 2023. This is the News International edition, and we are broadcasting to you live from our Vision Group headquarters here in Kampala, Uganda. I'm Emma Akwero. We start off today from Sudan, the latest updates on the violence there. Warplanes roared overhead as explosions rocked Khartoum on Friday, just hours after Sudan's warring parties agreed to respect humanitarian principles in their spiraling conflict without a truce in sight. Footage shot on May 11th shows smoke billowing over the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, as fighting between the army and paramilitaries continues nearly after a month of conflict. After previous truces evaporated, the U.S. said the two sides also agreed in Jeddah for the first time on ways to monitor any ceasefire. Now, our reporter Viola Kusasira has been following this very closely.
Nearly 1 month after the outbreak of the fighting that has killed more than 750 people and displaced hundreds of thousands, the two sides signed the agreement late Thursday at talks in the Saudi city of Jeddah. However, already by the next morning, the situation on the ground appeared unchanged, with the forces of two rival generals again exchanging fire in the capital, which is home to 5 million people. A witness in South Khartoum reported fighter jets overhead and the sound of clashes and explosions, while another in the north reported airstrikes and the sound of anti-aircraft missiles.
It hasn't, we can't sleep. We haven't slept in the past 4 days. We try to catch a few naps here and there, but it's not helping at all. We haven't left our house. There have been, I hear stories of other people being able to go out and buy necessities.
In western Darfur, which has seen some of the bloodiest fighting, people took cover from heavy gunfire and artillery blasts, witnesses said. Envoys for the two generals, Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the paramilitary commander Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, had agreed in Jeddah to affirm our commitment to ensure that civilians are protected. The agreement commits both sides to let in badly needed humanitarian assistance and also calls for the restoration of electricity, water and other basic services. We are confident that we will overcome this crisis with the prudence, wisdom and strength that preserves the country's security and unity to enable us to transfer into civilian rule. Our honorable citizens, we pray for all our country's matters and wish quick recovery to those wounded. We pray to God our country would be living in peace and security next Eid al-Fitr. Greetings to you, my country's soldiers. You are sacrificing yourselves for this dear homeland. The United States and Saudi Arabia, which led the diplomatic drive, said talks were ongoing with a proposal on the table for a 10-day truce, which could lead to negotiations on a longer-term end to fighting. However, U.S. diplomats were frank about the obstacles in the nearly week-long Jeddah talks. UN Special Representative Volker Perthes welcomed the agreement as a significant first step. The important thing is that the two sides have committed themselves to continue discussions under Saudi and U.S. mediation, Perthes said, adding he expected ceasefire talks to resume late Thursday or Friday. Almost 200,000 people have fled Sudan, in addition to hundreds of thousands who have been displaced inside the country, the UN said on Friday. At least 18 humanitarian workers have been killed since the conflict flared on April 15th, with many international agencies suspending their work. The UN's World Food Programme said millions of dollars worth of food was looted in Khartoum alone. Beyond Khartoum, the long-troubled Darfur region has seen some of the worst unrest. Darfur remains awash with weapons and has seen hundreds killed and hundreds of thousands displaced during the current hostilities. In April alone, more than 200 people were killed in clashes between an Arab community and the non-Arab Masaleti minority in the Kring area of West Darfur. Meanwhile, UGCE images posted on May 12, 2023 show damage at the Khartoum International Airport. 1 month since Sudan's conflict erupted, its capital is a desolate war zone where terrorized families huddle in their homes as gun battles rage in the dusty, deserted streets outside.
Away from Sudan, in Rwanda, 1 week after the floods cost the lives of nearly 131 people, Rwandan President Paul Kagame visited the Rubavu district, one of the 3 most affected districts. On site, he checked the damage caused by the Sebeya River, but also met with the displaced people of the Inyemarihigo camp. Experts say extreme weather events are happening with increased frequency and intensity, especially in East Africa, due to climate change.
Rwanda on Saturday said it had set aside nearly $100 million to repair damaged infrastructure following powerful floods and landslides last week that claimed 131 lives and destroyed thousands of homes. More than 9,000 people were left homeless after rivers of mud swept through villages and cut off roads following heavy rain in several parts of the hilly East African nation. Rwandan President Paul Kagame paid a visit to the flood victims in areas of Rubavu, one of the most affected. We are as sad as you are to know that you are in this terrible situation. One of the displaced persons, Nyandathemuria Felician, from Inyemera-Mihigo camp, expressed gratitude for the president's visit and the support given by this camp. We are happy about his visit because we were very worried, but the visit of our president today gives us hope. In this camp, we have no problems. The children have milk, biscuits, there is food for the adults too. We also have toilets. We are treated well here. Some 50 schools were destroyed along with critical infrastructure, including roads, bridges, water stations and electricity grids in one of the worst such natural disasters in years in Rwanda. 9,000 people were made homeless because of this disaster. Jean-Claude Musabimana, Minister of Local Government, said those remaining in disaster-prone areas should vacate their homes and seek assistance from authorities. We have put in place emergency response teams to provide necessities such as food and bedding, he said. No one should be staying in disaster-prone areas at the moment. Infrastructure Minister Ernest Nsabimana said 110 billion Rwandan francs, an equivalent to $98.5 million, had been set aside to ensure that the new infrastructure is strong enough to withstand disasters such as floods and landslides. East Africa often suffers from wild weather during the rainy seasons. In May 2020, at least 65 people died in Rwanda as heavy rains pounded the region, while more than 200 people died in floods and landslides in the first 4 months of 2018. Last week, more than 170 people died after heavy rains and flooding in eastern DRC. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Saturday offered his condolences to the victims of the catastrophic floods in Rwanda and DRC, adding that this is yet another illustration of accelerating climate change and its disastrous impact on countries that have done nothing to contribute to global warming.
Staying with extreme weather, contact was slowly being restored on Monday, with tens of thousands of people cut off in a major Myanmar port city as the death toll from cyclone that tore through the west of the country and neighboring Bangladesh rose to at least 5. Cyclone Mocha made landfall between Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh and Myanmar's Sitwe, carrying winds of up to 195 kilometers per hour, the biggest storm to hit the Bay of Bengal in more than a decade.
This storm had largely passed by late Sunday, sparing the refugee camps housing almost 1 million Rohingya in Bangladesh, where officials said there had been no deaths. At least 5 people were killed in Myanmar and some residents were injured, the military junta said in a statement without giving details. More than 860 houses and 14 hospitals or clinics had been damaged across the country, it said. At least 5 people had died in the city and around 25 had been injured. Local rescue workers Ko Lin Lin told our reporter. Communications were still mostly down on Monday, with Rakhine State capital Sitwe home to around 150,000 people, and which bore the brunt of the storm, according to cyclone trackers. So far, there are 5 people who have died, according to our data. There are 2 people who have died when a wall collapsed. There is a person who died after being hit by broken glass. The other 2 died when the beams on the balcony collapsed. 5 deaths in total at the moment. We are also searching for more. There are also many missing people. We have no internet connection, phone signal, or the connections are cut off. We search if someone requests us to search for the missing people. Some people who were at their home during the storm are still missing. Now we are on rescue operation using our speedboat in the sea. Hundreds of people who had sheltered on higher ground were returning to the city along a road littered with trees, pylons, and power cables, our reporters said. Mocha made landfall on Sunday, bringing a storm surge and high winds that toppled a communications tower in Sitwe, according to images published on social media. The United Nations said communication problems meant it had not yet been able to assess the damage in Rakhine, which has been ravaged by ethnic conflict for years. On Bangladesh's Shah Polil Dweep Island, residents began repairing damaged homes, searching through debris and retrieving scattered possessions. Bangladesh officials said they had evacuated 750,000 people and no one had died in the cyclone. The damage was also minimal in the Rohingya camps, where about 1 million people live in 190,000 bamboo and tarpaulin shelters, officials said. Better forecasting and more effective evacuation planning have dramatically reduced the death toll from such storms in recent years. Scientists have warned that storms are becoming more powerful as the world gets warmer because of climate change. Cyclones, the equivalent of hurricanes in North Atlantic or typhoons in Northwest Pacific, are a regular and deadly menace on the coast of the northern Indian Ocean, where tens of millions of people live. Cyclone Nargis devastated Myanmar's Irrawaddy Delta in 2008, killing at least 138,000 people. The then junta faced international criticism for its response to the disaster. It was accused of blocking emergency aid and initially refusing to grant access to humanitarian workers and supplies.
Now, the war in Ukraine still rages on. The latest news coming in is that French top-flight football club Rennes on Sunday held an emotional homage to Aman Soldin, their former youth player and a video reporter killed in Ukraine on Tuesday. Soldin's mother and brother lived in the western city, and Rennes held a tribute to his memory at the Brenton club's home match with Troyes. Around 30 of Soldin's friends and family were invited, including a sister living in the Bosnian city of Bosna, to pay tribute to his sacrifice.
Fans joined Rennes Club in warmly applauding as images of the slain reporter were shown on giant screens at the stadium, while the announcer saluted Soldin's courage and commitment to informing as many as possible about the realities of the conflict. AFP displayed a large photo of journalist Aman Soldin, killed at the age of 32 in Ukraine, on the facade of his Paris headquarters. Bosnian-born French citizen Soldin, 32, was on assignment with the AFP team as the Global News Agency's video coordinator in Ukraine when they came under fire from Grad rockets while with Ukrainian soldiers near Bakhmut. Before becoming a journalist, Soldin, who as a toddler left war-torn Bosnia with his mother on a humanitarian flight to France, had been a key footballer as a teenager. Growing up in the western region of Brittany, he earned a place on the Rennes youth team between 2006 and 2008 in his mid-teens, only giving up on a professional career due to knee injury. Football was a big part of his life, his brother Sven told AFP in midweek. He was extremely good, extremely talented. He had something extra. Even after plumping for a career as a journalist, Soldin never lost his passion for the round ball. Starting off with AFP in the agency's Rome bureau in 2015, he would enjoy weekly games with other journalists, as well as a kickabout with migrants, whose fate he was reporting on in the Italian Mediterranean island of Lampedusa. He also had a 4-year spell away from political reporting, working for Canal Plus Television's Match of the Day program covering English Premier League football. The broadcaster, who some colleagues nicknamed the Nutmeg Machine for his skill of playing the ball between the opponent's legs, put out a tribute to his time there in its Saturday night edition.
Passionné de foot et fidèle supporter des Rouges et Noirs, il avait porté nos couleurs entre 2006 et 2008. L'ensemble du club tenait à adresser ses sincères condoléances à la famille et aux proches d'Arman. Merci de bien vouloir respecter un temps d'applaudissement en la mémoire d'Arman Soldin.
Soldin also had a spell working for AFP in London. While in Britain, he posted a tweet of him soaking up the atmosphere at a Tottenham match, not forgetting to keep an eye on his tablet with his beloved Rennes simultaneously meeting Marseille. The death of Soldin brought to at least 11 the number of journalists, fixers or drivers for media teams killed since Russia invaded Ukraine more than a year ago, according to advocacy groups. French anti-terror prosecutors said on Wednesday they were launching a war crime investigation into Soldin's death. Hundreds of AFP staff observed a minute of silence Friday at Paris headquarters and from bureaus around the world via video conference.
The News International edition will now take a short break, but please stay with us.